Okay, so this is a four-way battle between the Huawei Nova 5T, the Poco X3 NFC, the Redmi Note 10, and the Samsung Galaxy A52. These are some of the very best mid-range devices money can buy today. Now, on the extreme left, we have the Huawei Nova 5T, a phone from 2019. Then we have the Poco X3 NFC, a phone from 2020. And we have the 2021 phones, which are the Redmi and the Samsung Galaxy A52. Now, design-wise, which of these devices is the most beautiful for you? So, first of all, let's talk about the build quality of these materials. When we take a look at the Huawei Nova 5T, the Huawei Nova 5T is made of glass in front and glass at the back. Now, the glass at the back is kind of like this very reflective glass, and we have the camera cutouts, which was kind of what you got in 2019. And then when you look at the Redmi, it's made of glass at the back, and the Samsung Galaxy A52 and the Poco X3 NFC are both made of plastic. Now, if a phone doesn't have wireless charging, then glass at the back just makes it look reflective, makes it look beautiful, feels premium, but it doesn't really add any value to the device, and it rather increases your level of concern if the phone should drop from a height and shatter the back glass. Now, if we take the Huawei Nova 5T, at the bottom you have a USB-C port, you don't have any 3.5mm earphone jack. On the side, we have a fingerprint sensor embedded into the power button, which is one of the fastest fingerprint sensors I've ever seen. Next, we take a look at the Poco X3 NFC, and this phone also has a similar implementation where you have a fingerprint sensor on the right, volume controls on the right, but this phone has a 3.5mm earphone jack, whereas the Huawei Nova 5T does not have a 3.5mm earphone jack. The Poco X3 NFC also has dual speakers and has one of the very fastest fingerprint sensors I've ever used. You barely touch it and it unlocks. Next, we have the 2021 released Redmi Note 10, which has a very beautiful gradient glass back, and at the bottom you have a USB-C port, a speaker, a microphone, and at the top you have a 3.5mm, another speaker, a microphone, and an IR blaster. On the right hand side you have the fingerprint sensor and the volume control buttons, and the iconic camera layout with the 108 megapixel camera, which has a silver lining around it. Now, the fingerprint sensor of the Redmi Note 10 Pro is also pretty fast. Now, finally, we have the Samsung Galaxy A52, which has a very minimal design at the back with, a silver lining around the lens of the cameras. This is the only device which doesn't have a fingerprint sensor embedded into the power button, but then it has an in-display fingerprint sensor. It also has a 3.5mm earphone jack and stereo speakers. The fingerprint sensor on the Samsung Galaxy A52 is the slowest out of all the four devices. You actually need to keep your finger on it for quite longer before you are unable to unlock your device. And so when it comes to unlocking your device, the Samsung Galaxy A52 fares the worst out of this, with the Redmi Note 10 and the Huawei Nova 5T being the fastest out of all the four. So now let's look at what makes each device unique. We have two devices made by Xiaomi, which are the Redmi Note 10 Pro and the Poco X3 NFC. Now both of them are running MIUI and the software experience is pretty nice. Both of them have 120Hz refresh rate, but the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro has a Super AMOLED display, whereas the Poco X3 NFC has an LCD display. But apart from that, screen size and all that are the same. I really like the display of the Redmi Note 10 Pro. It's super bright, it's very responsive because of the 120Hz refresh rate. It has dark mode, it has all the bells and whistles you expect from a good display. And this phone costs just about $300, whereas the Poco X3 NFC costs about $200 today. The Huawei Nova 5T costs about $250, and the Samsung Galaxy A52 costs about $350. Only the Redmi Note 10 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy A52 have an always-on display because they have the Super AMOLED technology. The Huawei Nova 5T and the Poco X3 NFC, which have LCD displays, do not have this. And in terms of the always on display, you have a lot of customization options on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, which I love so much. So this is what it looks like for the always on display. Next, we have the Huawei Nova 5T, and though this phone doesn't have a high refresh rate, it is still super responsive. The colors are really good. When you're consuming content, it looks very good. Now, the trump card for the Huawei Nova 5T is the fact that it has a flagship processor, which is the same processor which was in the Huawei P30 Pro. So it is the fastest out of all these devices. Oops, I dropped it. Next, we have the Poco X3 NFC, which has an LCD display, a Snapdragon 732G processor. It's pretty responsive. It has 6 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage, or 128 gigs of storage. Next, we have the Samsung Galaxy A52. This is the regular model with the slow fingerprint sensor. Now, this has a Super AMOLED display and maxes out at 90 Hz of refresh rate. It's pretty fast, pretty responsive, though it uses a Snapdragon 720G processor. So in terms of performance, the Samsung Galaxy A52 is the least powerful of all the 4 devices. Now, it has the always on display, light mode, dark mode, all the great things we're used to expecting from Samsung. It also has One UI 3.1, which is pretty fast, pretty intuitive, and fun to use. So we've discussed these things on paper, but how do they perform in real life? We are coming to do a speed test where we are going to download the same app on all devices after clearing all open apps, and all devices are connected to the same internet connectivity. Now, you notice that from left to right, I have the Poco X3 NFC, I have the Samsung Galaxy A52, the Huawei Nova 5T, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro on the far right. Now, I launched it in that same order, like I pressed install in that same order. So I pressed first on the Poco X3 NFC and last on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. But if you look closely, you can see that the Huawei Nova 5T has taken a commanding lead over all the others. Even though it was the third to be launched, it's over 50% done, whilst the others are about 40%. The Redmi Note 10 Pro is about 20%, and the Samsung Galaxy A52 is currently sitting at around 30 to 40%. So we have the Huawei Nova 5T in a comfortable lead, followed by the Poco X3 NFC, and then the Samsung Galaxy A52. And last is the Redmi Note 10 Pro. But the Redmi Note 10 Pro is catching up pretty quickly to the Samsung Galaxy A52, while the Poco X3 NFC, which was launched first, is almost at about 80% of installing. The Poco X3 NFC is doing pretty well, but now we can see clearly that the Redmi Note 10 Pro has actually caught up and surpassed the Samsung Galaxy A52. So the Snapdragon 732G on the Redmi Note 10 Pro is performing better than the Snapdragon 720G on the Samsung Galaxy A52. And ladies and gentlemen, the Huawei Nova 5T has completely downloaded, installed the app, launched the app, and it is chilling, drinking some Sobolo whilst waiting for the others to complete. Now we have a close tie between the Poco X3 NFC, which has a Snapdragon 732G processor, similar to what we have on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, almost neck to neck. But the Redmi Note 10 Pro has completed downloading, and is currently installing, and has also launched the app whilst we wait for the Poco X3 NFC to complete the installation and waiting for the Samsung Galaxy. The Samsung Galaxy has finished, but the Poco also finished at the same time. Wow. Okay, so next we are going to look at the SIM and storage options of all these devices. On the left, we have the Huawei Nova 5T, which doesn't have expandable storage but is dual SIM, followed by the Poco X3 NFC, where you can use either 2 SIMs or 1 SIM and an expandable card. And then the Redmi Note 10 Pro, which is the only device which can use 2 SIMs and expandable storage at the same time. Next, we have the Samsung Galaxy A52, which has a similar implementation to the Poco X3 NFC, in that you can use 1 SIM expandable storage or 2 SIMs no expandable storage. Alright, now it's time to test the cameras on these devices, and first up is the Poco X3 NFC. You can clearly see that the background of the paper I'm using is light blue, but the Poco X3 NFC is kind of a more saturated blue. Next, we have the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and this is more true to life as compared to the Poco X3 NFC. In fact, as you're going to see, it is the one which gives you the most accurate colors as compared to all the others. So the Redmi Note 10 Pro, in terms of just taking your camera and taking a picture, will give you the most accurate colors. The Samsung Galaxy A52 is up next, and you can clearly see that for the Samsung Galaxy A52, when you take pictures, it is super saturated. I don't know why Samsung does this with their cameras and their software. So this is the main camera. You can see the blue is a very deep blue, and it gets even worse when you turn on the ultra wide or the telephoto mode. Super saturated. If that's your thing, then you can go for the Samsung Galaxy A52. But if you want kind of like iPhone kind of pictures where what you see is what you get, then if you want a mid-range device, the best for you right now would be the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Next is the Huawei Nova 5T, and that is also a bit saturated, but not as saturated as the Samsung Galaxy A52. So with this, I bring this super epic comparison to a conclusion, and what I would like to say in summary is, if you want the best value overall, that would be the Redmi Note 10 Pro. But if you want a phone which has water resistance, in-display fingerprint sensor, a very good display, then you probably want the Samsung Galaxy A52. If you want a very cheap phone which still delivers, then the Poco X3 NFC. But if you want the most powerful mid-range device, still undisputed, it is the Huawei Nova 5T. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you are new to my channel, I do mobile phone reviews, mobile app reviews, and I bring to you affordable gadget reviews to help you make an informed decision when you're making your next purchase. So if you like that kind of content, please click on the subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you do not miss any episode. Thanks, Bibre.